Hello, and welcome back to Good CEOs. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Natalie Graeme, co-founder of Uncommon. Now, everyone knows Uncommon to be this wildly successful independent agency story where they were acquired by Havas. And I invited Natalie on because I wanted to speak about why they took that investment. Why did they go forward with Havas? What is it like building a company once you've been acquired? And what changes, what doesn't change, and really what it's been like to lead a business that has retained its independence despite going through an acquisition. Natalie is just incredible as a person. She is, as I call her, the queen of no, and I think that's a huge reason as to why Uncommon has grown to where they are without sacrificing who they are. I would listen to this one if you are an independent agency owner that is desperate to maintain your culture as you either consider going through investment or you consider scaling your company beyond where it currently is today, or internationalizing, which Uncommon has done brilliantly well. Uncommon and Natalie have done incredible things. They've diversified their capabilities into CX, into design. They've internationalized successfully, like really successfully. They are the fastest growing independent or creative company studio in the US. So an incredible story to tell, and you can see when you speak to Natalie and when we kind of cover why that is, there is this deep set and understanding of who they are, and there's also this deep set of we're not done yet. So enjoy this episode. I really hope you do. Let us know what you think, and let's get into it. Here it is. Natalie Graeme, co-founder of Uncommon. For many people that haven't been hiding under a rock, they know who you are. They know what Uncommon is. Arguably the best creative company in the world, and under a decade old, which is kind of crazy to think about how much you guys have achieved in that time. This is going to be really hard, and I'm not sure if you know what the answer to this question is, but for those that don't know who you are, what is the one piece of work that you're most personally proud of?
Oh, that's a really tough question to start with. No, I think if I was asked to choose between my children, I think I'd pick British Airways. I think honestly, because that partnership is so deep, and I think when we first started working with them, it was the partnership that made us feel like we'd really arrived, because it speaks to every part of the studio and what we originally envisaged for what company we wanted to build. So it touches on advertising, obviously, but we do their safety video, we get into the CX. It's everything, and they're wonderful people, and we really love working really closely with Sean and Lisa and the team over there.
Okay, I'm curious about, was there a clear kind of commercial goal to the partnership when you first said, okay, right, we're going to work with you guys? I can imagine you were up against massive integrated agencies at the time. What was their major brief or goal when they first set out?
Well, we were coming out of COVID at that point, so obviously the airline industry had taken a massive battering. So for them, it was get us out of this hole, and we need partners that can see no walls between advertising, customer experience, and just lifting everything that they do. So they needed true partners that understood their business and could see lots of opportunities rather than feeling like they were in a tailspin. So no pun intended. And for us, I think it was just as I said, fantastic opportunity to really turn our hand to all parts, all aspects of what we can do. So it wasn't just one advertising brief and let's measure the impact of that piece of advertising. It was actually, how do we create a brand platform that can elevate everything?
Yeah, it's amazing. And I like the out of office work as well. Like it's funny because I thought that would have been the platform that you guys carried on with the whole way through, but then you put out the most simplistic thing in the world, which has almost become even more iconic than the original out of office thing. How the output of that is so simplistic, but I can imagine everything that goes into that is not. How do you arrive at that and go, okay, this is it. This is the way we're going forward?
I mean, that's the magic trick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is something simple seems like, oh, it should have been easy, right? There's sometimes a misunderstanding that because we are very deliberate in who we choose to work with and who we don't work with, well, they come wanting to do brilliant work, and they do. We have phenomenal clients who are all incredibly ambitious for what their businesses can do. They come to us at a moment in change, so obviously there's a moment that means that they have to act and they have to do something different. The conversation starts in a great place, but actually taking it to something that's so simplistic, as you say, with that out-of-home campaign.
Yeah.
Sometimes the penny drops and everyone goes, well, obviously it's that. Why did we never see this before? But very often it's not as simple as that, and it takes a few goes for everyone to recognise that the bravest thing is to do something that's quite pared back, has such brand confidence, which obviously is what's so brilliant about that work.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I'm going to go forward now into the future. Hello, welcome. It's 2026. Most recent thing that you guys have done, which has made you feel very proud, or as proud, or nearly as proud as BA?
I love our work for The Ordinary. I guess that's easy for me to say now. We've won a Grand Prix for the periodic fable work. But that work came out while I was just starting my maternity leave. So it's quite an odd feeling to be so distant from the team when they're doing stuff that's so phenomenal. And it may have just been the hormones or lack of sleep. But I was really chuffed when I saw that work go live. It's flipping brilliant. And I think the fact that it speaks to how we work strategically, right? Really getting the truth of a brand and being able to bring that to life in a way that cuts through beyond a category, I think is what I've loved about it, and it seems like a lot of people have liked that since too. So
I loved it. I mean, my wife's majorly into skincare, so I knew what The Ordinary was or is. I'm standing in Space NK a lot on the weekends, kind of go, oh, that's a really cool brand. And it was only when I saw the periodic fable thing, I was like, that is genius. Again, it's like simplistic. I can't imagine it was simplistic to arrive at that idea. But straight away you see it. It's like, okay, it's like you're selling the fact that it's no bullshit ingredients, basically. And everybody's saying that their scientific formula is the right one. Everyone's saying that their concoction of different things they put together is the one that you need. How do you make science sexy and simplistic at the same time? And it was, I don't want to just make this like me gushing about your work, but that was definitely my favorite thing that I've seen you guys do. Maybe it's unbiased.
coming back, post maternity leave, I'm looking for everything to prop up my face and sleep deprivation. So actually, I guess the honesty with which The Ordinary has really owned its history, its reason for being, I think is what's so compelling about that work and all the work done since. Actually, I think it's just a really lovely partnership. So.
Moving on to my third, very different question here, because we're moving into capitalism now. Welcome. I know that you're an avid listener of Good CEOs, an avid reader of our newsletter, so therefore you'll be aware that this particular series is all about creativity meeting capital. I remember 3 years or so, Unknown is weirdly nearly the same age as Uncommon, and I remember looking over and saying, wow, this company is like fiercely independent. There is nearly zero chance that these guys would ever consider taking investment. I think I remember you guys saying very clearly, like, it would take a lot for that to ever happen. I guess my question is more, why that time, and why Havas? And when you took that investment from Havas, my follow-up really is, what's changed and what surprised you about taking investment from a huge French business?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think when you start something, as you well know, you have a fantasy for where it can go, and you never quite believe that that's possible. You hope it is. And Uncommon obviously had been growing brilliantly. We were really chuffed with what we were doing, but we wanted to go further and faster, and we knew that the best place for us to do that would be the States. Access to some of the best and most compelling briefs that are out there, and not just in advertising, just writ large, in design, in experiences, and it just felt like it was really important that we were there. And we were getting a lot of calls from the States as well, and during COVID, I'm sure all of us did. The reality was we could work from London, and we did do that for quite some time, but at a certain point it flipped into us needing to have a crew over there, and actually just wanting to build a business over there that felt truly American, so Uncommon at its core, but actually having a real sense of what was the Uncommon version for America. But it's a bit of a gamble opening in the States, and there are many companies that try to do it that sadly have struggled. That's not to say that we've got it 100% right, but I think we're the fastest growing studio over there. I think we've done something right. Yeah. And so back to the question, I guess we wanted to be able to do it and to go at it as we know only we can, which is really properly going for it. And to do that, you obviously need to bet the house, and you have to be careful that you're not betting the whole house on this one thing you're trying to do. And our feeling was we needed a partner in order to do that and feel like we could go at it harder and stronger with that partner in tow. Could we have done it on our own? Possibly, but I think we would have been second guessing some of our instincts. And that's always a danger when you're wanting to be so ambitious for not just our future as a business, but for all of our team to feel like we wanted to have access to those opportunities, and it felt like it was better if we did it with an amazing crew over in the States. And to do that, we really felt we needed a great partner. And I think we're really lucky because basically it doesn't feel like anything's changed.
Really?
No, genuinely. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise, but
It's
because
definitely a surprise. It's definitely a surprise.
we designed it that way. I mean, I think all of us, as in myself, Nils and Lucy, but our wider team, have been involved in studios or agencies that have been part of some sort of acquisition. And as you say, that I think the reason some people were quite surprised when it happened was because there's a temptation to think there's a certain way to do these sorts of deals. And we were very deliberate in what we didn't want it to be. And what we would deem to be acceptable as our partnership and who we were looking for. And so back to why Havas, because they were, honestly, when we met them, we realised immediately that they were the right partners for us. They're hugely entrepreneurial, they're really supportive, they know what they've got themselves into, or maybe not, with us. And they just want to give us the freedom and the support to crack on. And that's what they've let us do. But also the structure and the way we did the deal was to allow us to still continue to have that freedom. Because otherwise I think that can chip away at the core of what you're all about. And so that's pretty cool.
It is rare that we had a guy on before this, called Matt Lacey, speaking about Waypoint. Obviously, Waypoint do lots of M&A deals, and we looked at the different things you consider, right? So one is straight up PE, direct to like a Westbridge like Koto have done recently, or you do something like a PE backed group, like a Residence, like okay, cool kind of situation, or you go holding company and it's a straight up acquisition. Most of the time, when a holding company acquires a strategic asset or whatever, you normally find it doesn't take too long for them to then build in their processes and systems, and the culture gets crushed, and it ends up becoming this shell of what it originally was. Yeah. That was not the case here at all. Yeah. So if you were a founder of an agency right now considering doing a holding co deal, what would you say to them to make sure that they retain their culture and made sure that there are non-negotiables to sort of hold on to that independence?
It's a really good question. I think certainly when it comes to the structure of a deal, we were really, really clear that there were certain ways that we showed up that made us special and made us successful. And they're the things that needed to be written into the way that we did the deal, even down to our selection and choice of our IT provider. And I know that sounds quite ridiculous, but that sort of stuff is how this deal would show up and how this partnership would show up for a lot of our team on a day-to-day basis. And the last thing you need is for people to feel that that's getting in the way of them being able to just literally crack on with their day and get their work done, right? So it's literally in the small details as much as it is in the larger parts. And so I think being super clear about what makes you special, but also the day-to-day grind where things show up and that it's a positive way that it shows up. We've been able to open in the States because of our partnership with Havas, not we've got an IT provider, which they probably have an amazing team, but we have our own crew because firstly they started out with us, so that's part of our culture and how we show up. But also I think it's a daily reminder that we are in charge of our own destiny. And that stuff is critical.
It's interesting. I thought the one thing that you would expect to go would be the IT provider. I mean, there's like cross-operational things and I imagine philosophies and pitching styles and values and offices and things like that. The last thing I thought you were going to say was the IT provider remains. No, this is very important to us. Why? Can I ask a question? Why is that IT provider so special?
No, it's a totem. It's a totem in the way of those sorts of things, and I think it's about working out what's special. So we're a studio. Ultimately, that's not just a nomenclature across the door. It is actually how we show up, and for us, that means that we show up in a slightly different way than maybe more traditional agencies. We are constantly trying to we're trying to experiment. We are not necessarily looking to come up with stuff and then chuck it over the fence for someone else to do. We are always trying to prototype and experiment ourselves. And I think that that definition has been quite key in making sure that everyone understands that Uncommon is slightly different. We can't just be subsumed into a different way of doing stuff that doesn't fit with that. And it also means that we can partner well with people within Havas and outside of Havas, because we can plug people in as we need to, rather than it feeling like we have to become part of the bigger team over there.
I've heard from a lot of people that you're the queen of no. And there was I think someone said, what makes Natalie Graeme so good? And the first thing the person said is she knows how to say no very like politely, but also when to say no. This is a bit of a superpower, and I feel like in order to be confident enough to say no, you have to have some level of experience in what you say yes to, right? I'd love to know like an example of a big no that even questioned your no-ness. and how you do it. How do you select on what you're turning away? How much of it is based on hunch, and how much of it is based on a series of criteria that makes you make that selection?
Oh, I'd love to know who said I was the queen of no. I wonder if I said yes to them.
Yeah.
Goodness, it kind of depends what decision you're weighing up, but I think probably it shows up most when it comes down to client partnerships. So I'm a big believer that sometimes the worst thing you can do is win a pitch. Because you really have to make sure that partnership works both ways. And so for me, new business is the most important place to be knowing and perfecting your yes or no, because that helps define the potential for your studio and your team. And often pitches, I think, are the best way to be able to grow and to try on new capabilities and to stretch the potential of what you're about. But by the same token, if you win things that maybe just take you backwards or end up feeling like it's Groundhog Year, that's possibly not the best thing to say yes to. So we're very deliberate in turning down a lot of opportunities that come our way, and sometimes that can feel desperately uncomfortable. I remember when we first started, there was a really massive brand that got in touch. And Nils, Lucy and I think there was only 4 of us in the whole studio at that point. So there was Nils, Lucy, myself, and an account director at the time. And we were really beating ourselves up trying to answer this pitch. We were getting it all wrong. I mean, to the point where the account director turned around and said, "What the hell are you doing? What have I joined? This is awful." And we looked at each other and said, "Yeah, you're right. We shouldn't do this." And there was huge money attached to it. It would have potentially, been a game changer in terms of our financial fortunes at that particular moment. But the sort of work it would have led us to create, the sort of team it would have required us to therefore build as a result of that, all of the knock-on consequences of saying yes to that were something that we just couldn't fathom. So we said no. And it was a real, hold on to your chair at time, because we didn't think we were maybe that was the only opportunity that was ever going to come our way. Yeah. It was quite terrifying, but it was the right thing to do. And I remember looking at the P&L sheet at that point and literally crossing out stuff and thinking, well, I can't do that, I can't do this as a result of having said no to this opportunity. But being fine staring down the barrel of that, because it was the right thing to do. And then lo and behold, I think it was 2 weeks later, we won 2 pitches, and the rest is history.
I remember there was a time, I feel like I shouldn't say the supermarket, but there was a very famous supermarket known for low prices and bum tapping as the jingle. And I remember that walking through agencies, and they would award the account to Fallon or whoever it was at the time, and this huge kind of accordion style expansion, talent, and they would always last about 2 or 3 years at every one of these agencies, and then off they would go to the next one. And it would leave that business in such a bad state where you've sacrificed some of your values by the people that you've hired because you couldn't hire them quick enough. Yeah. You've demonstrated work that you're not proud of, but it's the bulk of what you're producing because it's a retail account and it's flying on the whole time. And they never seem to recover or bounce back when when a brand that big, that always on, but also that rigid in the way that they work with their partners. So it's amazingly great call, but also hard. Do you ever see a supermarket brand or kind of a large retail account of that size? How do you kind of tame that beast? Or have you ever seen that happen successfully with an agency where they're saying, look, you're a huge client, but you have to work in our way?
I think things have changed. I'm not sure that clients really feel able to dictate how something should work these days. I think the reality is it'll show up in the output, right? So ultimately, how we get there is changing by the minute, and the tools we use, whether it's AI or whatever, I think are changing when it comes to a lot of the retail output. I mean, obviously, if there are dictated terms as to exactly how things should work, then it's a bit of a conversation about, is that, as you say, we're not going to win stuff at all costs. What are we giving up? What are we changing as a result? And ultimately, that might be a good thing. It might be great for us to learn how to do something a bit differently and to work within the way that client works, but only if we're not giving up what makes us brilliant. Because otherwise, what the hell are they buying? They're going to buy into us, but without the way that makes us great, and so they'll get a crap version, in which case it's incumbent on us to say, well, that's not going to work. So I don't think it's about our way or a client's way. It's about building a bespoke crew that works, but ultimately, if it chips away at the stuff that's actually going to make you brilliant, then quite frankly you should be asking yourself whether or not it's the right thing to do.
All the things that have sort of happened in the last 5 or 6 years, what do you think has changed the most about how clients approach and work with agencies now?
I think there's a huge merging of marketing and customer experience. And by that, I don't mean just CX, I mean just the client responsibility is far more all-encompassing. So they have really tricky roles. In many cases, they have so many responsibilities, and that can be quite a burden as to what's the infrastructure, what's the crew, how is that going to work. But ultimately, I think from a studio point of view, from my point of view, I think it's hugely exciting, because it means that ultimately there might be one person who's responsible for all the different places where a brand might show up. And that, you know, if we are true partners to them, we can really help them understand how at every single moment of every single touch point there is an opportunity, whether that's the call centre or in retail or in advertising. There's lots of different places where we can make a difference. And I think that can be really, really thrilling, but it is quite a challenge for clients to kind of juggle all of that sometimes. And I think the other thing that's probably changed is I think clients are a lot clearer as to what they want. We had 94% of our revenue last year came direct, so came knowing that they wanted to speak to Uncommon, and about 66% of that was non-competitive, so they knew they wanted to be Uncommon. So for us, I think it's always been a bit like that, but it's pretty significant, and for me that's quite a change in the last few years in particular.
If there was ever a stat that proved the value of building brand for an agency, Nils was talking about, I forget the name of the CCO that he worked for now, that was speaking around, you know, PR and being shameless in doing kind of agency PR. But like, as a stat, that's incredible. You know, the brand recall of an agency, because these days it is hard to know what an agency stands for, because there's so many agencies blurring into each other. We had Integrated Gate about 10 years ago. Everyone said that they were integrated. But I think in that sense, people kind of lost the ability or desire to kind of stand out and actually go, no, we're okay with not doing everything. We much prefer to be known for something good. I want to move into other agencies, and imagining you're like consulting, or you know, you're around this agency. A lot of people that listen to this are kind of scaling. They've perhaps moved into the magic million of EBIT, and they're kind of growing and trying to figure out what they do at this point. Many agencies are thinking about taking investment, or they're thinking of doubling down, or they're thinking of internationalizing like you guys did. If you're in that situation right now, imagine you're, you know, just topping over, what would your advice be to that agency?
Well, firstly, brilliant that they've got to that point where they're wanting to scale. I think we definitely have good parties, but I don't think we've celebrated as much on the milestone as we should have done. But I think ultimately it's about removing fear. I think really it's critical for scaling to not feel any sort of fear. Now, that's a really easy thing to say and a hard thing to do, but I don't think anyone makes any good business decisions out of fear. And ultimately, I think that's when your instincts are really silenced. I think it's easier for a founder than it is for a kind of CEO inheriting a business, because ultimately I think you can look at that zero balance sheet you probably had when you first started and go, well, you know, what's the worst that can happen? I started from nothing. I can build back up. And that's, you know, again, that's easier said than done. But I think that should, if anything, help remove the fear a bit.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately you need to place some bets. So if you're scaling, I think if you've hit 1 million, if you've hit 10 million profit, whatever it might be, I think the ability to go, right, well, what would triple it? And if you know what would triple it, then great, go for it. If you if you know what's stopping you tripling it, then change it, even if that's uncomfortable. If you don't want to triple it, then maybe you're not the person to continue scaling it, and that it might be equally uncomfortable. But honestly, understanding how do you continue to be ambitious for that business, I think is critical, really.
I like this idea of tripling. Like our CFO always says, you're allowed to bring 3 strategic bets into the board meeting, but you have to leave choosing which one you're going with. And those things, they're big things. It's like internationalizing or, expanding into a different capability. I'd love to know, can you think back to a single strategic bet that you were all aligned on that had the biggest impact to your growth?
There's a number of different ones. I think definitely the States, obviously. Yeah. But I also think our design capability. I mean, that's always been core to what we've been right from the start. Nils's background is he was a designer. We've always had an appreciation for that. But I think properly understanding what it was like to be a design front door, not just an advertising agency. I think recognizing that from the start, I'm not sure there was a particular moment as such, but there was always an ambition that that's what we wanted to do. But being able to, with that ambition, then hire accordingly and say, right, okay, well, if we're going to do that, it's not just something that's at the tail end or at the beginning of what we're selling in terms of advertising. It is its own full front door, full capability, and backing our bets on hiring some exceptional talent like Lisa Smith over in the States. I think that definitely makes us feel like we can go properly into all of those sorts of conversations with our head held high and winning some brilliant opportunities at the moment, which is great.
I get this sense that it's like all in. There's no sort of like half-arsing the strategic bet, like, because you could have, and without throwing shade at ad agencies taking on design, it's one of the most common briefs that we have. Advertising agencies that said they wanted to start to do more design, but they would look at it as if it was a bolt-on capability. I mean, if you look at a branding agency and how it works, there is an entirely different system, pace, margin, like everything is entirely different. And also at the same time internationalizing as well. I mean, I can say that we're, until we've taken some kind of investment, it is hard to not half-arse it, because you're like 401k, higher salaries, like it's a huge bet to make. There must be like a very clear alignment in all 3 of your minds, because like it would be very easy to half-arse all of those things and go, okay, look, we'll dip our toe into the US, and if we get some briefs, we'll service it from London, and we'll keep on doing that until we've made enough money to then go over there. Whereas for you, I imagine there would have been a time where the money might not have made sense in design or in internationalizing.
All the time. All the time. Look, I think the key to it is that we're never just placing everything on one bet, and maybe that sounds even more terrifying. But we've always got 1 or 2 bets going on, or more than 1 or 2 bets going on, and then hopefully 1 or 2 of those will come through. So we're always placing multiple different bets as to the sorts of places we think we can go. And key to that is obviously being a studio in the first place, so there aren't any walls other than ones we create ourselves as to where we can take things. So we will hire the very best talent and then give them the freedom, not just the perception of freedom, to be able to build something. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think most of the time, once you've hired brilliant people, you continue to back them, it ends up being a success. So we're often growing on many fronts, which is why I struggle to answer your question about one. And sometimes all at once. But that doesn't come down to just Nils, Lucy, and I. Nils, Lucy and I. It is about making sure we've got a wider crew who can equally run with the charge.
What's a bet now? Have you got any major bet that you're backing the most?
Well, that would be telling. We've got a few. Look, I think we've got phenomenal data capabilities, which are really supporting all of our strategic work, which is brilliant. On PR and culture and influence team is just putting not just a name, but actually some proper credibility, proper front door behind what we've always done, which is all of the work we do always has fame baked in. So that's very exciting. We're building out more into experiences, and from design and experiences team getting into more experience design, so actual retail spaces and places. So yeah, there's a number of different bets, and who knows which one may even move into architecture. Nils has always had a desire to get into that world as well. But yeah, I think it's about many bets.
Yeah. It's funny, that's definitely the area we can see growing the most. Weirdly, actually, all three of those areas. So brand consultancy, more sort of higher up the consultancy ladder, if you like. And then at the other end, influencer and social. It seems to be like these two parts are scaling. Again, the margins for the work seems to be better than in the middle. And then experiential, but also like the permanence of experience as well. Like, can you build industrial fixtures that don't just last for a campaign? It's a always on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, that's where we can start to see the convergence between experiential and architecture. There's this really interesting IP collective that's coming together where they're backing like experiences that last 10 years, not 10 weeks. And in that you need different, I'm sure you and Nils would probably say the School of Athens kind of people who are, as good as it gets when it comes to that kind of level of design. Data's an interesting one. When you say your data capabilities, how does that happen? Where do you get data capabilities from? Is that like in the tools that you're using, or is that in the IP that you're building internally? How does that work?
We've got a phenomenal crew, and then we've built some proprietary tools. So being able to, essentially get some off-the-shelf tools, but then how we analyze it specifically helps. And then also we've always had a strategic operating system that Lucy originally built when we started, and being able to essentially layer in our CX capability, which we do as well, and then the data capability as well. It's just elevating everything, and I mean, AI definitely helps in that instance as well, because you're ending up being able to use AI and the data analytics tools to really help surface far more nuanced, smaller communities that we kind of instinctively knew were out there, but actually being able to put some rigor around it as well is really, really, really exciting.
And AI, I have to do it. Sorry, Nat, but it's come up. It's a segue. Okay, can you point to one thing, maybe surprising or not, but one thing that AI has done to hugely change Uncommon versus like all the standard stuff, like everyone's got AI listening and things like that. Is there a part where you've been quite surprised?
I'm not sure there's anything that surprised me as such, but I think there's an awful lot of chat about taste, obviously. But I'm quite excited because we've always backed senior talent, and we've always brought in senior talent. I'm hoping that this means a return to people actually valuing experience and talented senior people. And we've always had them in our crew, but I think, that idea of the fact that you only get to taste is potentially because you've got a bunch of experience. That curation role is going to be critical, and so that seniority of talent is going to be really quite key. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily a surprise, but for me it's definitely a natural progression from the fact that everyone's talking about the importance of taste, which I agree with.
It's kind of affirming, isn't it? I think everyone that we've spoken to about AI seems to say that it helps you get to the mean average quicker. But the mean average isn't where the work's going to be. It kind of gives you the undercurrent of, okay, cool, that's what the average thing is that's out there. Now, how do we make that the least average thing that we can make?
Yeah.
But I've not heard, a couple of people potentially in branding have said that it's helped with things like pitch decks and like mocking up ideas really quickly without having to waste the designer's time or whatever, which I can imagine is really helpful if you're pitching a lot. Cool. You can visualize the idea quickly with a client. The client can go, okay, that's AI, I can see that, but thanks, I now have a good visual understanding of the idea. But other than that, I've not heard a great deal of like executionally impactful AI.
No, I think from that point of view, it's brilliant in production, and it can definitely help with personalization and scaling the amount of content that we're able to produce, and that's to a penny now. That's what we do. Across the board. I think executionally, ultimately, as you say, if you just let AI do it, then you will get what's already expected. It's what's already out there, right? It can only surface what already exists, and so those leaps certainly the people come to Uncommon for, require human intervention and for us to use AI as a tool. So I would even stop short of seeing any sort of AI just show up in a pitch deck. Just because we're pitching lots and we can doesn't mean to say that we should be showing that as our product. Ultimately, it needs some level of curation and craft and ideas. I mean, I guess behind the scenes, the thing you wouldn't see, we're using AI a lot in our operations. This might surprise you, and given we're talking about capitalism and what have you, and capital, the way that we run our revenue and our resourcing is a daily review, and we have done that all the way through. We don't do revenue and resourcing matching up retrospectively, looking at the past month. We do it on a daily basis.
Wow.
And we've always done that because that's how we work. And now with AI, there's a lot less manual and a lot more analysis then surfaced. So it means that the same team who have been doing that analysis are now freer to be able to follow through on the consequences of that analysis rather than having to do it all manually. So that might surprise you.
That is quite surprising. Every day. That's a lot.
Yeah, well, it's not if that's the system you build. And we're project based in a lot of instances. We're a studio, so it's quite fluid.
Yeah, I'm hearing now why we say studio, not an agency or not a consultancy. There's like a more fluid approach to running a business if you're acting in that way. And if it is a studio, you would have. I'm thinking of a literal. My dad used to have a studio, and it was mad and hectic, but there was a system in place, and that system would stay the same, but the variable thing would be who's doing what on what day and why. And it sounds like, that's kind of baked into what you guys are doing. I want to move into, before we go into your predictions, one last question just on agency life, studio life, I should say. And that is, if you were starting an agency or a studio, what would be different today versus 2018, which is, I believe, when you started?
Well, I wouldn't start an agency, I'd start a studio. You've already preempted that one. I mean, I don't think I'd change anything massively, but I think there's more tools available to us these days. I think certainly with the advent of creators, I would make sure we were creating a creative studio that had editorial, creators, experiences, design, the ability to actually make, and then partner with brands in order to leverage some of the things that we were making. So certainly kind of making sure that it's definitely brand is absolutely part of it, but that it's partnerships on the things that we're already making for ourselves, as well as going out and independently creating things ourselves. So,
how would that look? Would that be like kind of, I'm imagining like you have this talent arm, famous people that perhaps they're influencers or, they've got their own following. Would it be like a case of doing a joint venture with a creator and a brand that you would back, or?
Possibly.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the moment, we've got our 4th feature in production at the moment with some A-list talent. We did work in Venice Biennale the other month. We're doing quite a lot of this stuff anyway. It wouldn't be a huge shift, but I just would have started that sooner, which is easier said than done.
Okay, amazing. I want to move into your predictions, which I'm hoping. I'm looking at a blank page in front of me with our Google Sheets, so I'm really hoping that there are some here. But let's move into it. Natalie Graeme, what are your 3 predictions for the creative economy?
So, there are some, don't worry. One, I think there'll probably be a bifurcation in agencies that just produce advertising at scale and those who can really shift the business fortunes through creativity. And by the way, the latter can also produce content at scale. So firstly, I think there'll be a bifurcation in those agencies that produce advertising at scale and other agencies who can really shift business fortunes through creativity using all different tools. And obviously the latter can still produce content at scale. It's just that I think that agencies that are fundamentally built to be able to produce content at scale are missing the creativity that it takes and the value of creativity to really shift businesses.
Yeah. Part of me goes, are these people on this side more business minded or commercially minded to enable themselves to do that, versus the other side being more traditional in the way that they're producing work?
Possibly. I mean, I think ultimately, we're seeing it already, aren't we? A lot of the larger agencies are removing creative talent because a lot of it can be produced through AI, and so ultimately they are servicing quite large needs from clients, but they are doing it with less creative talent because the tools to be able to produce that content at scale don't require it. Ultimately, you end up with a hollowed out, for want of a better phrase, version of the creative department and the creative understanding that it requires to produce that content at scale versus companies that value creativity and value that to make proper business shifts. And I think ultimately there will be probably two different camps.
Interesting. Okay, I'm clear on that one. Okay, thank you. And number two?
I think we've already talked about it a little bit, but rise of experience, I don't know that's prediction, but ultimately I'm seeing a lot of experiences coming back and a lot of experiential led companies doing brilliantly. They obviously took a hammer in COVID, and so it's the rise of the experience company again, I think.
Yeah.
And then the third one would be finally the death knell for time and materials, being our system for valuing ideas. It's not something I've ever been a massive fan of. We've always tried lots of different models for how our expertise and our partnerships are valued with clients. But ultimately, I don't think AI essentially means that it's going to become incredibly hard to benchmark rates against each other because all rates will be a blend of talent plus tech.
Yeah.
Everyone's tech stack is different. And everyone's use of that tech stack and approach will be different. So I think it hopefully will now mean a more transparent and open conversation with procurement teams about how best to value what it is we do for our brand partners.
Do you see openness on that? I think that's a really good one. I think some of the newer agencies now are coming out and saying, okay, there's every conversation is a business conversation to figure out where do you sit on, in a way, it's like a scale of risk. Like if we go one end is the least risky, which is time and materials, and then we're moving into kind of outcome-based pricing and, growth-based pricing. The next being more, I guess, joint venture, maybe even like IP things. Yeah, rev share, yeah, exactly. And then I guess like on the right is probably, I guess no, I'd put joint venture probably the riskiest, where it's like I'm taking equity in the thing because you have no control over whether a world war happens, whether, the supply chain breaks or anything that happens in that way. So in a way, I kind of see like a barometer of risk and the best agencies kind of having almost like a venture capital portfolio, like high risk. Maybe we have 10 or 15% in the high risk JVs, but the bulk of the stuff we're doing is a productized version of what was the time and materials model. Can you see, like, if you looked at Uncommon's barometer of deal, would that be how it would look, or would there be even more to add to that?
No, I think it is that spread, and it has been since day one. To be honest, we've always tried different models that work for our clients and the appetite for risk on both sides. And I think when we look at some of our startups or scale-ups we've worked with in the past, sometimes that's been far more equity-led conversation. Sometimes it's been rev share. So yeah, you're fully in the boat with each other, but the balance of risk is obviously potentially far smaller, but the upside is potentially far bigger. So we've done a bit of everything really, and we still, do have some relationships where it's a blend. So it might be a bit of rev share, a bit of performance by results, so outcome-based pricing. That's output pricing as well. So yeah, there's a real mix.
It's hard to value that kind of business though as well. You probably won't see a WPP or a larger holding company making these kind of deals because they're reporting to Wall Street on a quarterly basis. How do you take a rev share, well not even a rev share, how do you take a joint venture that's probably a 10-year bet down the line to Wall Street and saying like, oh, it's fine, like, it's going to be hugely valuable in about 10 years time. Yeah. It's hard to imagine that. Again, I think this is probably the biggest opportunity for independently run businesses to, take longer bets on their financial modeling without the pressure of, the Wall Street thing. Okay. Last thing, and I will let you go after this. One quote. What is the one quote that has guided your life, or even just guided your life in the last few months? It could be a long-standing quote. It could be a most recent quote.
Oh, I'm not sure I've got an exact quote. I mean, ultimately, I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I'm not entirely sure where that came from. I mean, maybe my quote should be Queen of No, but I might. Look, I think I've always had a chip on my shoulder, and so other people's underestimation of me is my fuel. But I think Serena Williams did have a quote. I tried to find one that kind of
Yeah,
really captured it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there is one.
I've got
I
it.
think, yeah.
I think, what if you said, you say chip on your shoulder like it's a bad thing? That could be your t-shirt slogan. Because it's true. I mean, I'm kind of, I feel similar to that in the sense of like anybody that has arrived versus someone that is constantly becoming. I always find they're the least enjoyable person to be around because the chip's gone, the chip's kind of filled up, and they're very. And I think content is the wrong word. You almost get the sense of like, I don't know, they're not going anywhere. They're kind of, they won't accept any new opinions. They won't accept they're wrong. There's kind of, I think the chip is what you need. If you haven't got a chip, then you're just this perfect being that everyone hates.
I'll take that. I'll take that. Okay.
I love that. Well, Nat, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pure pleasure. And I can't wait for this to go live. There's been lots of gems in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.